Hello, everyone. I am William Del Pilar, and welcome to Thursday Night Conservative Talk with Fired Up. Tonight is one of those shows where all the storylines connect if you zoom out just a little. We've got Trump again being accused of war crimes over narco boat strikes and a seized tanker now off the coast of Venezuela. And the question hanging over all of it is, well, not over me, but most of America, are we being slow walked into a real shooting conflict in the Caribbean while the media runs Russia hoax style narratives on the military front? We'll talk about that. Then we've got COVID back in the headlines, but not because of a new variant, but because of FDA's own memo and even the Atlantic, ultra liberal, ultra leftist, ultra progressive. They're so far left, they'll never see right anytime in their lives. They now acknowledge kids died from the mRNA shots. And the same people who sold safe and effective for everyone now want to treat dead children like a PR problem instead of a scandal that demands accountability. Translation, their mantra, move along, nothing to see here. We've got a few words about that. Then we've got Republicans literally helping push Jasmine Crockett into the Texas Senate race because they think she's the easiest Democrat to beat. Anybody remember that same mantra being pushed by Democrats with our current president? Then we've got that happening at the same time we're seeing a push by the socialist wing to shove aside more electable establishment Democrats. You'll never guess who's being challenged. Hint, jeans. Then we've got Miami, where a Democrat just flipped the mayor's office on tiny turnout by hammering what the G-Man keeps talking about, what I talk about, what Annette Ross talks about, affordability. While the GOP leaned on the vibes and Trump's past wins and found out again that if his name isn't on the ballot, the voters really don't like you, GOP, and a lot of our voters don't show up. Put it together and you can see the same pattern. Democrats sharpening their message and moving their socialist wing into real power. Republicans coasting on Trump's coattails and past victories, and massive questions about who actually gets held accountable when the experts and the political class get people hurt. Now, with that said, I want to put in my final 30 seconds in here. We have a messaging problem. We have an arrogant, we have an elitist, we have a California Republican Party, but it's not just here. I'm seeing the same story played out in New York, now Miami, Pennsylvania, all these races at the state and local level, where during election season, they say, don't talk about Trump, or we're not with Trump. And they actually think that will work. When Trump's on the ballot, he can move the needle. When he's not on the ballot, all these conservatives hear that message. Well, if you don't support my president, I don't support you. You know, in the back of my head, I picture your classic, what's the term, stereotypical backroom smoke cigar filled with old, fat, white, rich cronies. It's not that, but in essence, it is that. Just there's women now, there's Indians, there's blacks, there's Latinos. The shape, size, and culture may change, but human nature's still there. The money they want and all they care about is money for themselves and grifting. That's why we call it the consultant class. They get paid no matter what. And when do we find out that their way doesn't work, never works, will never work, is when we see these off-season elections, and then we get shellacked in the midterms. We still have time, but I got to tell you, people, until the current GOP leadership gets that, understands that, and acknowledges that, as David Giglio said a few weeks ago, populism is here. And it's here to stay. And if you don't accept that, leftist populism with this socialist class will slowly begin to take over. And your kids and your kids' grandkids will be the ones that suffer. Never forget that. And with that, let's get tonight's show going. And let me bring in the panel. Let's hear what they have to say about my comments here. Of course, they're brilliant, I know, so they probably won't have much to say, except if not, I'll kick them out. First up, we got the G-Man. How you doing, G?
I don't know of any Indians in those smoke-filled back rooms with the power brokers.
We used to know one. Actually, there's a lot here. They're just not in the power broker rooms. But you go to one of those conventions, I was shocked at how many farmers are Indian, you know? And they have a rich legacy. They were the ones that wear the turbans. Which ones?
Yeah.
The Sikhs, yes. California has a rich history of Sikhs in this state. And that's, you can never stop educating yourself. So maybe they haven't made it to the back room yet, G. Miss Annette Ross, how are you doing?
Good. I thought when you said brilliant, you meant me and G.
I see those lumps I gave you from Tucker last week haven't been. So, guys, what do you think? Do you think my non in the notes question is, and we're going to talk about it a little bit more in depth, but in general, I don't think unless we start turning it around, I see more and more shellackings happening. And I don't think the current GOP leadership gets it. I don't think they want to get it. I don't think they care to get it as long as they get theirs. The rumors are out there how much the former California Republican chair made off of the Prop 50 debacle. We know there's a whole sordid history of grifting off the party. I think I don't want to get into it too much because I want to talk about specifically in a segment the Miami election. And the loss isn't what most people think, but it's still a loss. This seems to be happening. New York City, Miami, top 50 here, New Jersey, Pennsylvania. And then the race that we won, we should have won by 20 or 30 points. We win by 10 points in Tennessee, in Nashville. And let's not sugarcoat it, people. She was a nut job. She's the type of woman who lost in New York City that even we as sailors at 2 a.m. we go, no, bro, don't go there. Don't go there. That's how bad a candidate and a human being she was. Your thoughts on the GOP?
Yeah, I mean, she going back to that Tennessee candidate. I mean, I think she pulled her inner Michelle Obama and actually trashed her own state. Whereas Michelle Obama said, "I've never been proud of this country until they elected Barack Obama, her husband." So and she came within 10. That is a little disturbing. I think the GOP, if they focused on affordability, which Trump is now doing, he did a speech 2 nights ago and talked about lowering prices and all that. That will go a long way. You got a year. You got 1 year to do it. But not only that, I think they need to throw in housing. I mean, just real quick, the housing market is more unaffordable than any time in history, even the 2008 bubble time. And there's some relatively simple fixes, and Trump's talked about them a little bit. One, either increasing the capital gains exclusion on the sale of your home or eliminating it altogether. And two, taking your existing 2.8% mortgage and moving that to the new house, right? So you still have the same loan, you're just paying for the new house with the proceeds from the old home. So if they focus on those things, I think we'll be fine next year, personally.
What do you think of that?
Did either one of you watch MTG on 60 Minutes yet?
Yeah, I haven't and I won't because she's old news. Her relevancy
I
will
don't
only
think
be
so.
played up by the leftist media now.
Okay, William, you're right about that. However, I mean, if you're paying attention, and I know you are, there's a lot of fracturing happening in the Republican Party. I don't think it's going to bode well for us next year at all. Unless what G says comes to fruition, which is we get the affordability to a better place than it is right now. I'm talking to people even just last night at a party who are saying that they need to two young guys, different conversations, both said to me they feel like they need to leave San Diego because they can't afford to live here. I'm like, where are you going to go? Where do you think you can afford to live? And he's like, good question. So yeah, I hope we could maybe, like he said, there's some fixes. I don't know. Did you mean the 50-year mortgage when you were talking about that? Was that one of the potential fixes?
I mean, it could be, but I think that's a waste of time. Fix the other two things, right? Keep
Right.
our interest rates low and then make ours. I'm stuck in my house. I have capital gains on the gain of my house, and I got to pay taxes on that. And then I could not afford my next house.
Right.
So make it tax free. Let me buy the next house with every dollar that I make on my existing house. I'll move, and then a bunch of supply will come on the market. House prices will fall, and then younger people can afford them. Simple. The guys in Washington don't want to do that. I guess Annette didn't like that idea.
No, I guess not. She got boot. Did I boot her out accidentally? I'm trying to put some notes together, and I noticed one of the keys shifted. Annette, were you that turned off by G?
I think you just gotten out of it, William.
Whoa. Something's up. I think I believe our service provider here had an update. So I'm wondering if we're seeing some the updated. Go ahead, G. Keep going.
No. So that I think, yeah, the 50-year mortgage. So people made hay of it. Like, that's terrible because the first 10 years you're paying almost all interest. Well, that's the same with the 30-year mortgage. And people said the same thing 100 years ago when that was floated by FDR. You're just going to pay a bunch of interest. here's what people miss is that, okay, well, at least you own the home. And if it goes up in price, you capture that equity, right? That also works in reverse. If it goes down, you'll lose that equity. So that's not going to change much of anything. You want to move the housing market, get your loan transferable, have capital gains on the sale of a house tax free. And I would say the third one is get all the regulations out of the way, and you have more supply. You can build faster, more, cheaper. People can afford those homes. It costs $500,000 to build a home in California. That's just the cost. So now the builder has to, mark it up to what, 657 just for a starter home. I mean, how many people can afford that?
Well, okay, so here's a couple of points why I'm going to disagree. Obviously, you guys aren't marketers. I'm being dead serious.
I'm not.
Campaigning and selling your products and selling your message is marketing 101. It's that simple. What did Obama do for it wasn't true after the first couple of years, but what did he do for 8 years? He blamed Bush every single day. We knew it was a joke. You knew it was a joke, but that's what the people believe. That's what helped propel him over Romney. Romney's loss wasn't as big as people think it was, So it's messaging. The big beautiful bill has tax breaks, it has issues like that. It's not that I disagree with you, G. I agree with you. That's what they have to do underneath to work it. What it is messaging. You can truthfully blame Biden for one whole year. You only heard Trump say that. And as he got more involved with peace talks with all these countries and NATO and Ukraine, he stopped that message. And the Republicans never pick that message up. So if they can all get on the same page and that mantra becomes the theme with the affordability, we can win the midterms. But right now, the Democrats have successfully captured that affordability messaging right now. Trump's first day was Pennsylvania yesterday. Now, Trump, look, I'm sorry, President Trump, you're a freaking idiot. It's a hoax. It's a hoax. Affordability is not a hoax. Everything G said is correct. It's correct. We got here from just 4 years ago, G. I want to say 4 years ago, prices in homes are like just doubled in 4 years. Doubled. Think about that. We can throw out all the stats, but in 4 years, it doubled. And here's the other thing is they don't make starter homes anymore. A starter home used to be, me and my wife, we live in pretty much a starter home because we don't have kids. It's 3 bedrooms, garage, couple acres, a little bit over 3,000 square feet. Starter homes are 2,500, 3,000 square feet. Now they make them at 4,500. They don't make starter homes for actual newlyweds to go in. So that's a problem. So what I'm saying is there's so many problems underneath all of this that they have to go in and take care of, but it's all a messaging game. Trump got on the message. He needs to understand the messaging game, though. He's angry. Everything's a hoax to him because of the Russia hoax. It's like somebody needs to go bop, 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 bop on his head there. Melania, somebody, because his wording is destroying his own credibility because that person goes, well, hell, it's not a hoax. I can't afford it. But he also needs to pump up what he has done. Food prices are coming down in most sectors. Gas is down. You can afford to go, And when I say food, it's expensive. Meat's expensive, The beef industry is expensive. So, but there are places where it's affected. They themselves acknowledged it, J.D. Vance, a week ago when he said, look, we've actually cut deep into this, but Biden messed it up so much, we're probably not even halfway there. And once the new year comes in, a lot of the big, beautiful bill stuff kicks in. Most of that stuff, in fact, all of that stuff doesn't kick in until January. Then you see it. G and I talked about this, and I think, G, you've forgotten some of that because you're concerned with, based on the conversation the last couple of weeks. But there's an interim period. They did all their work to fix the economy. Scott Bessent and everybody did the first 3 months. Then it became a wait period. Okay, we got to wait for these policies to take effect. I said that, I predicted that, but it's like a shot in the gut when you see all this negativity. Because you can't do it. You feel impotent because you can't really say or do anything except it's a waiting period. But we're a country that doesn't want to wait. We want everything yesterday.
Can I just say one thing about that? And G, you will agree with this because you've been on the board with me. I now have, with 3 different superintendents, heard them blame the previous superintendent for all the problems that we are now sitting, like they'll say, now you have all these problems. I got to fix all these problems from the other superintendent before I can move forward and fix other things and make the school better. I mean, it's a little bit of a cop out. No,
I didn't say marketing is messaging. The truth is how you perceive the truth.
no, geez. The truth, there's no real truth now. There's no truth.
There never has been. You see this your way. G sees it his way. I see it my way. You think you're seeing it the truthful way. G thinks he's seeing it the truthful way. I think I'm seeing it the truthful way. The truth is in there in the middle. It's how we perceive it. It's one of the oldest lessons. A commander, after I got in trouble in my early 20s, sat me down, called me up, and like, go ahead, what I do? Son, do you know what perception is? Perception is how people see the truth. Here's the truth. You're seeing it this way. The division officer you're having an issue with sees it this way. So I had to figure out what is the actual truth. That's how life works. All Black Americans right now, because they've been indoctrinated, not all, many are indoctrinated. They see the truth as it's old whitey destroying their lives. That's their perception of the truth. Is that the truth? No. I'm not saying my truth is right and your truth is wrong. I'm saying that there's a truth right there. You're here. I'm here. But G's out there.
Wait, do we have the capacity to know it though? Are you saying?
Yes, with data, with all kinds of stuff. Not everything. I'm just telling you how people perceive it.
Here's the other part of it.
That's very deep. We could really dive into that deeper, but I don't want to digress.
Just real quick, like both could be right? If I'm standing face to face with you and with my foot I draw a 6 on the ground and you say, "Oh, you drew a 9," and I said, "No, I drew a 6," and you say, "No, you drew a 9."
Right.
But we're both right,
correct.
right?
But let's take the actual example. Trump is right. This is all Biden's fault, but he's still got to fix it because kids are hurting. They are hurting. But egg prices are down. Gas is really down. It's the lowest it's been in years. Rent is way down compared to what it was 50%. So both things can be true. To the person who's wanting to buy a home, boy, this economy sucks. I don't even have the money to make a down payment. Whereas a person, Mom, Dad, don't worry about it. I don't got to go live in the basement. Woo! I just found a rental down the road.
Yeah, we should probably get on to our first point. But what I will say is if house prices came down, then people won't be worrying about food prices as much because that compensates, right? The housing is the biggest expense.
Right.
So
Right.
Under control, you don't care that beef went up a couple bucks a pound.
Exactly. In fact, I wrote this down and I didn't put it in my notes. This is how it works for the young kids. Housing, transportation, food, and entertainment. Now, entertainment is always dependent on what their situation is, but those are the 4 things they all look at. You know, you got to have a place to live. You have to have transportation, and then you have to be able to provide for food, and then obviously entertainment. And that's how we all live. Rent was always first and foremost. Hey, man, let's go out here. Well, I ain't got gas money, bro, till 2 weeks from now for when I get paid. Hey, man, what do you got to eat? Don't leave my ramen alone. That's my last cup of ramen there. That's how we live, but that's the order. And that's how the president needs somebody young on his staff to help figure that out. Mr. President, we get it. It's not all you, but here's the issues facing the Mamdani supporters. All right.
JD Vance.
Yes. All right, let's get to it. So tonight's Trump, he's been dealing with the narco boat strikes. Now he has a seizure of a massive oil tanker off of Venezuela. Democrats are yelling war crime and illegal orders. And the question is simple. And it's a legitimate question. Are we getting dragged toward a war in the Caribbean? Then you have the seditious 6, and they're the ones who told the troops to refuse Trump's orders. I'm not going to get into that, but that ties into this. And as we all know, Trump has launched a hard-edged maritime campaign, blow him up on these narco boats, and he actually has the public's support on it. It doesn't seem like it, but when some of those polls are taken, they have the support. Now, the Democrats in the media, they're branding parts of this as potentially, but they always say potentially illegal. They never say illegal or even war crimes. I mean, they'll say it till they get called out on it, you know. And Trump and his team, they insist it's lawful. They got the JAG backers. They got the law on their side. They have history on their side. So now the seditious 6, who said, you know, Mr. E3 dumbass, you don't know what it is. Don't do that order. What order? I don't know, but don't do it. That's pretty much what they're saying. Now they're pointing to the narco incidents. There's a war crime, yet they can't actually pinpoint the war crime. But it's all like a circle. You know, it all comes fully around. So the big question for this segment is, are these boat strikes and the tanker grab smart, tough policy, or are we starting to see an entrance into an undeclared war? Let's start out with G.
No, I think this is going to be limited. I think Trump's always been clear. He hates war.
Yeah.
I think he just wants Maduro out of there. So I think these are limited time things. So he took over the oil tanker. Well, that's the source of revenue for Venezuela. So if they don't have the tax money coming in, and hey, we get some free gas, I mean, maybe that will bring down our oil prices a little more, at least in the short term. But yeah, I don't think Trump is going to make this go beyond just some limited strikes, maybe a SEAL team landing, maybe a few boots on the ground, but not some big long-term thing. Similar to Reagan, right? What Reagan invaded Grenada with was that Noriega?
Noriega. And it
Yeah.
wasn't Reagan. Oh, Reagan invaded Grenada first, invaded Panama and Just Cause, my home country.
Okay, yeah. So it will be just limited strikes. I mean, otherwise, he knows the Democrats will hound him for starting a war. But I think it's clear to everyone that he doesn't like war. He doesn't like people dying, and he hates it. And I don't think he wants that on his watch.
Right. I tend to agree. Annette, before you answer a political question, what are your thoughts on the two narco traffickers? And let's get this straight. They always try to portray that they're farmers. They just want to get a little help, extra money. They tend to be the bad guys of the village, the ones nobody likes, the ones who will beat you. These are not good, innocent people. What was your take with that?
With what?
The fact that they took him out and the Democrats claimed they were non-combatants at that point.
You mean with their murder?
So you think they were non-combatants?
I mean, I don't like what we're doing in Venezuela at all. Yeah. I think, first of all, you're just feeding the Democrats, a lot of great things to try to twist and make Trump look bad. I don't know why. I think we're picking an odd situation to get involved in, and I don't know why. And someone like Jeffrey Sachs, who I really respect, says that it really is about us controlling their oil and their precious minerals. And I think that's wrong, completely wrong. So I hate the involved. I agree with G. I do believe Trump hates war in the sense he doesn't want to see our soldiers and our men and women dying. I really believe that. I believe he wants to be a person of peace. So why this aggressive act with Venezuela is completely obnoxious to me. I think it makes no sense. I think it looks terrible. And I think there's a lot of places we could pick out to get involved, and we don't. So why Venezuela? Somebody makes a convincing argument for me.
Okay, where should we be? Where should we be at then? You said there's a lot of places.
Where are those kids that are missing in Nigeria?
So we should go bombing Nigeria is what you're saying? What are you saying here?
The Boko Haram. I'm saying, why are we letting, you know what I'm saying? Innocent children?
So I'm asking you, what are you saying that Trump should do? Go in there with troops? Do what?
He was going to. Didn't you hear him on the plane? On the plane, he said he thought it was terrible.
No, he said we better figure something out before I have to do something.
Well, he's done nothing, and they're still missing. So why not that?
What's your take on Annette? On Annette's take, G?
I don't believe these. No, right? I don't know that it's farmers on these boats. It could be, but if you're running a drug running operation, you do the farmers to make the drugs, but then the guys on the boats actually taking them, they're criminals and gang members or whatever. So or cartel members. So I don't know. I mean, the second strike, I don't know about that because all the information is not out. So, that's up in the air. Do I agree with Annette? Is getting Maduro out of Venezuela our fight? I mean, we've always had the Monroe Doctrine that this hemisphere is our hemisphere, whether we still believe that or not. And Nigeria is not our hemisphere. So I'm just more of an isolationist overall. So I just think, look, if we need to blockade Venezuela, fine. But if we're going to start bombing them, I'm not for that.
But then let me ask you this, though. Don't as many drugs come out of Colombia? So why not Colombia? Are we going to take them on too? So what?
Yeah, he just warned the Colombian president. Yeah.
I think this is just a pretext to fight the socialist government more than actual drugs. Because you're right. You're never going to stop drugs. And it's more than one country. But I think this is just a pretext of, you're a socialist, we don't like your government. I think that's it.
Well, what's happened is there's a crossing of a line. I saw this firsthand in Panama with Noriega. The U.S. tolerates a lot. Then eventually lines get crossed. And the U.S. it's like, okay, we looked the other way for so long. And I think Trump is at that point where I think the establishment was okay with Maduro doing even worse, heinous things. And that includes the exponential increase of shipments. See, people think it's Colombia. Like you said, what about Colombia? That ship sailed a few decades, over a generation ago, in the sense it's not just Colombia. The
Mexico.
cartel, it's in Mexico, it's in Venezuela, and Maduro, as with Noriega, it's a unique issue because the head of the state is allowing it to happen. It's not like when Colombia's government was trying to battle them. There's nobody. It's open season. And that's what's increased. They were seen as Venezuela's going to look the other way. And with all the fentanyl and truck, has always had an issue with drugs. He doesn't drink, doesn't smoke those drugs. He ran on his first time with the opioid crisis. And this is merely an extension, along with the Monroe Doctrine, which Trump believes in as well. And Trump, I don't view this as war, this is more political. We're not going to see troops on the ground. If you see any type of spec ops on the ground, it's going to be to blow up key areas, but you're not going to see boots on the ground in engagement. And I also think that the Venezuelans, just like in Panama, it's like, remember Iraq, the sixth largest, strongest army in the world. And they were like a paper mache. A lot of these countries, their numbers aren't as good. And when you do not a ground, but a pounding war through the air, that tends to expose that. And I don't think we'll ever get that far. In fact, Maduro just last week was on the telephone trying to negotiate a settlement to leave like the Shah did in the 70s, negotiating his exit. And that's where we're at right now. Maduro wants like 1,000 of his cronies to be able to go with him. They're, when nothing gets charged on them? What's that term? Gosh, I'm drawing a blank. No. They get away with everything. They don't get charged for anything. About 1,000 of his cronies. He wants to keep 200 million of his own cash. So we're in negotiating terms. But I think Trump views it more from the drug perspective, and they've crossed the line. And every situation is unique. Nigeria and Africa, that's a completely different beast. We have had excursions into Haiti, Panama, El Salvador, Guatemala, because this is our hemisphere. We have history here, and we do have a stake.
You make a really good. You make a good point about Haiti. Look at Haiti. Look at the state of Haiti. Look at state, but look at the country of Haiti. How much are we helping those people?
We are helping them. The problem is the people we're helping there is taking all the money. Yeah, you remember Papa Doc and Baby Doc?
No, I don't actually.
Then before you then maybe read up on them. It's how dictators get into power, and the money that goes to help. They're like gangs. They're like gang leaders. They're corrupt. And
Pharaoh's corrupt, but I'm saying we're doing something about that and nothing about the Haitians, who I think have
they're not a government that hates us. We actually work with them, and we give them money. We give them a lot of aid. It just doesn't go to the people.
It's corrupt.
Yeah. So what are you trying to say?
Can I say the dirty part of it?
What's that?
Venezuela has been, I don't know which terms to use, maybe all of them, the biggest oil producer outside of the United States in the Western Hemisphere. So now they're very important because of oil. And I'm a drill guy, but that's the reality. So now you got a socialist government in there, and they're in charge of the oil. And it's like, well, we don't like the socialist government, or that they're, they got the faucet on the oil and they're selling to their cronies in Russia and all that. So I think that's
another part. China. China's their biggest purchaser.
So that's another piece of the puzzle.
And so don't you think then, William, that it's a little bit of a dicey situation to get into? We're going to make some other people upset.
Who cares? Life is like that. I'm not saying who cares by meaning so what, but I'm saying is if that's how you look at everything, then we're going to be an isolationist. Like G said, the problem with being an isolationist is the world keeps moving. And if there's no U.S. presence in many places, the bad guys go in and they win.
I just love it when you say that.
If there was no U.S. right now, who would own Ukraine right now? Russia would. Because whose weapons, whose money, who's funding that damn war? We are.
Wait a minute. Yeah? Wouldn't the Russians say that Ukraine has always been a part of their territory?
Well, yeah, that's what they're saying. But what's that got to do with the U.S.'s presence in Ukraine?
You don't see what I'm trying to say. I'm saying they would say that Ukraine's always been a part of Russia. And you would say that maybe they got their independence or whatever. I'm just saying they're all bad guys. It's just a matter of degrees of bad. I think we're talking about, no, I'm saying even Trump, I think he's I think they're all bad guys. I think these leaders are bad guys. It's about who they're in bed with. And it's about.
Hold on here. You wanted to run for office. Would you have been a bad guy by default then?
I probably wouldn't have made it because I'm not a bad guy.
What I'm saying is it's easy. See, that's just a blanket cop-out statement. They're all bad guys.
Cop-out.
Yes, they are. Yes, they are. But the world still has to run. The world's still running. Decisions have to be made. Actions have to be taken. bad guy or not. It's like Tucker. Well, Hitler was never going to invade England. Y'all the ones who started the war. Like, what are you talking about, bro? It's like, so UK was really the bad guy there, not Germany. They are degrees of bad. Maduro has been funneling drugs over and over, and he's ramped that up, and he's a nation state that allows, it's like Somalia. It's not really, he's just another thug running that country. And I don't think we're going to go to war. I think Maduro's going to sit there and work out an exit plan for himself, and that'll be that. And then they're going to have to figure out how to have free elections, and it can happen. So y'all keep talking about oil, and they were the 5th oil producing country in the world at one point, if not higher. But there's other countries too.
And
that's one aspect.
You don't think that there are agents, United States agents, FBI agents even, who are looking the other way as drugs are coming across into our country? Come on.
So what are you saying? Coming in 10 zillion ways, so we can't deal with Maduro. He's only one. There's 90 million other ways.
I'm saying it's good business for us too, depending on who it's with. Sometimes we'll accept it. Sometimes we won't. That's what I think.
So what are you saying? You're giving these mantras that people say without any meaning, without any.
They have a ton of meaning. They have a ton of meaning, actually.
No, they're cop-outs. What are you saying then? That we shouldn't deal with Maduro, we shouldn't deal with any of these drug countries, but we should go deal with the Nigerians because they're Christians? No, that's what I'm hearing out of you.
No, I'm saying when it suits us, we will turn the cheek. I think we do make deals with the cartel.
And it should do it that way. That's how you should do this way, with the caveat that it's like, how does this affect our foreign policy or our domestic policy or our way of life? That's one way to look at it, which is why I'm like, Ukraine, that has nothing to do with this. Maduro, okay, I can buy it because it's our hemisphere.
Okay, so it's the Monroe Doctrine.
That's pushing it because they're pretty far out, Venezuela, but that's a more easily digestible reasoning, along with other factors. The drugs are coming into our country through them, and it's like China. Look, part of his dealings with China was to get them also to stop with the fentanyl. A lot of fentanyl was coming out of China, and he talked about that too. So it's not like it's just Venezuela. And then you get these morons. Well, no, Colombia pushes cocaine, or cocaine users aren't being harmed. It's like every damn excuse in the book. Tell that to the mother who lost her kid to a gangbanger because of drugs or whatnot. And I'm not saying one story should force a nation into war, but that story's been told millions of times over. He's trying to stop it with China, with Mexico. He's fighting various fronts. Venezuela is just the biggest one with the news because he started to take out. Before Trump came along, we tried to chase these boats down and we'd never catch him. And the ones we got close to, they would dump all their stuff. So they were literally winning that.
Okay,
in fact, they got subs now. The cartel does. Did you guys know that?
I don't know if I knew that.
Yeah, they have subs now. Now, see, in your mind, you're thinking these Navy type subs. No, they're small subs. Some of them are like 2-3 man subs, but those are not cheap. The cartel is a corporation now. They are not thugs.
Let me ask you this question: if you had a son and you were in the military, and he was sent out to do something, he's in special ops, do something in Venezuela, how would you feel about it?
My whole life. I come from a family. We all serve. My whole street, they were nothing but special operators. Actually, they were Green Berets now. I did drug ops. I was an interpreter. It's when you that's the answer that I tell people: go fuck yourself. Because yes, I would. And I have, but I know you wouldn't send your kid, but you're willing to send other kids, you Nikki Haley warmonger. So my whole point is if you're willing to do this, you better be willing to send your kid. I don't want to send any kid to the Ukraine. I don't want to send any kid to Venezuela, but I know there's ways we can do this without having to put a boot in the ground.
Okay.
Again, that's another cop out because never ask that question, Annette. Look at it as the lawyer. You know that saying in a courtroom, never ask a witness a question you don't know what they're going to say. Because it blows up your whole argument, because your argument is sound to most people, but mother ever wants to send their kid. I don't care whose mother. It could be a mother, a General Bradley, Eisenhower, George Washington's mother. That mother would go, don't send my boy to war.
I think people in World War II were proud to send their sons. I do. I think what do you think, G?
Yeah, that was definitely a different thing because we knew what we were fighting for. And we knew that if we didn't, well, one, we were attacked by the Japanese, and for some reason we went after Hitler first.
That's a little
different. The right decision. I'm not saying it was the wrong decision, but everyone supported it, even though they were going after the guy who didn't attack us at the time. But everyone was proud. I think it was just a different mindset because evil was clear, right? It was good and evil was very, very clear. With this Maduro case, I mean, look, I like Maduro, and I'm talking about cigar flavors. I don't like this guy. So
Right.
don't like this guy, but then I can't say that he's evil, right? But I do think he ran a fraudulent election and he won with whatever is like
It was
99%
two
of the vote.
fraudulent elections. He won by like over 60, 70%
Yeah.
in both of them. Yeah, I followed both those elections. I can't remember the percentage, but they're fraudulent. I saw that firsthand in Panama with Noriega.
Yeah.
Every pre-poll, all the people, all the rallies. Then all of a sudden, damn, who the hell votes for Noriega? He wins in these victories. Yeah. Now the real question isn't World War II. The real question is, well, we're going to send your son to something called D-Day. Really? Yeah. Send him there. Yeah, but about 2/3, 80% of the kids are going to die. What do you think? Then what's a mother going to say?
Only the first 4 hours. After the first 4 hours, it dropped to like 5%.
Remember that great actor? I can't remember, a big, heavy-set guy. He was from the 70s and 80s. I used to joke about him. Look at that fat bleep. And then a friend of mine, because he was just big when I was a kid, and he was on Rescue Me. He played the father. He's famous actor. And my friend chastised me. Who the hell are you? Do you know who that man is? That man was on D-Day. He was on that. I never looked at that. I'm like, eat all you want, brother. He said in one of his interviews, he was just a scared 18, 19-year-old kid. He turned around. The Sarge says, follow me. He goes, turns around to follow Sarge, and Sarge is blown in half. And I'm like, the trauma and nightmares that man had to live with. Always be careful. You chastise or the question you ask. No mother wants to send their kids into this war. All right, let's move on here. Let's head on over to COVID. COVID was rotten from the start. mRNA shots went from lab bench to authorization in under a year. Unheard of, overlapping trials, and almost no, in fact, I would say no built-in long-term safety follow-up. Then came just recently the Ventavia whistleblower. He kind of exposed how bad these trial site practices could be. Unblinded patients, sloppy follow-up protocol, sloppy follow-ups, protocol violations. Then she was fired. I'm noticing since the Obama regime, whistleblowers have been destroyed. They have been gone after. They're the ones who are getting jailed. And she was fired because she raised concerns. She raised questions. Now, I had to look this up because I forgot what it was. Unblinded patients means those who know which treatment they're getting. And all that was in the dark. So they weren't even doing those portions of the trial. And they showed this is safe and effective. And if you took it, you wouldn't spread COVID at all. That was one of the first arguments I got into with Big John. He is so pro-vax, so anti-hates Trump, so anti-this. He said, they never said that, William. And I showed him this video. He never brought COVID up again to me, because that's what TDS does to people. It makes them rationalize away the truth, and we all have seen the film Biden, along with the media, and so the early sales pitch was that taking the shot would stop infection and transmission. And that was used to justify mandates, passports, and treating skeptics like pariahs. How many people got censored? So then you had the breakthrough infections. Once they kept spreading, meaning people who had the vaccine were catching COVID, it was undeniable. So then it shifted from it will stop transmission to it might make it milder, or it's good for long-term COVID, even though no studies have actually been done, and long-term COVID hasn't really been defined per se, as much as it's this thought process out there. And when people pushed back on that shift, the response wasn't debate. It was censor, ban, and smear. The doctors and scientists who question lockdowns. You guys remember this. Dr. Barack, how do you pronounce it? I know you read his book. And no, Barack, he's in Trump's cabinet now or working for RK Jr., but he was banned. Those who questioned lockdowns, you question the lockdowns, school closures, or mandates, you were labeled misinformation, you were throttled, you were canceled. Now, even the academics now are saying there are documents showing coordinated efforts to marginalize heterodox COVID views. And by heterodox, meaning those who disagreed with the main message, the COVID jab was good. Alex Berenson, who broke the story of the kids, he was thrown off Twitter over his vaccine criticism, and then he settled with the company. I don't know if he got money or whatnot. So evidence that political pressure, not neutral scientific moderation, drove the censorship. Again, a good example of perception. A lot of people perceived COVID to be good for you. A lot of people perceived it to be bad for you, the vaccine. And the ones who perceived it that way and tried to talk about it were censored, canceled, and even their lives were forever ruined in many cases. So before we get into these kids, looking back at this whole COVID, what's your takeaway from that in terms of how you feel you were treated versus, as well as now that you take a step back, like what really happened versus how it was portrayed? Gee.
Yeah, I mean, I'll answer that, but I want to step back and remind people of right before the election, the COVID vaccine was, I don't know, developed, I should say. I was going to say invented, but developed. And then those guys sat on it because they didn't want to give Trump the credit for
Oh yes.
developing it until
Right.
after the election. But if you remember during the vice presidential debate, Kamala Harris was asked, "Will you take the vaccine if it's developed?" Which at the time pretty much was, but was kept under a container. Now,
Right.
why? If it's going to save lives, why not release it the month before or 2 months before, 2 weeks before? How many lives could it have saved if it was really going to save lives, right? Which I think to some degree it did. But the question to Kamala was, would you take it? And she said, if Trump develops it, no, I'm not going to take the Trump vaccine. Well, what were they pushing just 4 months later? Because Biden and Kamala get into office, and then they're saying, look, if you don't get this vaccine, which now Biden's taking credit for and not saying it's a Trump vaccine. So it's Biden's vaccine. So Kamala's like, I'm okay with taking that one. If you don't take this, you're going to lose your job. If you're a teacher, you're going to lose your job. In fact, Annette and I were faced with this California legislature and Gavin Newsom saying, we're going to pass this law that says if your kids don't take this vaccine, they cannot come to school. And Annette and I signed a resolution saying we will not comply with that. This board of this school district will not do that. Screw you. Kids are not at risk from this virus. So now we see that no, they actually, I mean, it's a very small percentage, but a lot of kids were harmed by the vaccine. So it's just a travesty because you know that if they really thought the vaccine was going to save, I don't know, 10,000 lives within the month before the election, they would have released it. They would have brought it out and said, "Hey, look, we're saving lives. Let's do it now." No, like you said, the TDS was so strong. They're like, "Let's let 10,000 people, well, in their mind, let's let 10,000, 20,000 people die so that Trump doesn't get back into office, and then we can give the vaccine once Biden gets into office." Now, I remember the vaccine rollout didn't happen until end of January. You know, there's another like, let's wait till Biden gets into office and then we can start jabbing people. So how many other tens of thousands of people died during that time? So I just think it's a travesty now that they're looking at the black box warning for children. I think that's great because I'm still getting notifications from my hospital. Hey, it's time for your COVID vaccine. And I'm just like, why are you pushing this on me still? Is COVID a thing?
So okay. So Annette, your thoughts?
Well, I guess your bigger question was how do we feel about it? And I think it was almost like for me, and maybe other people feel this way, like the veil was parted and I, for the first time, saw government in a completely different way. I think before then, I generally trusted government most of the time. And it really changed everything for me to think. And I always believed that the vaccine, there was something about it I didn't trust right out of the gate. And I guess I would say, you mentioned, there's a black box warning. Yes, we know that, especially for kids. I don't know. And isn't it true that there's no recourse for people who receive the vaccine? If there were problems that resulted from it, they can't
That's in the
sue.
1980s. In the 1980s, under Reagan, one of the travesties that he allowed to happen is because I disagree with G. I think overall the COVID vaccine helped people. No, I don't. There's no study that can actually show that. There's a lot of theories, that
Mhm.
it made it milder, it made it this. So what is it? Somebody's going, oh, it's doing you good. Those are the studies they reference. But my point is that happened in the Reagan in the 80s. And my issue with that is the vaccines were so safe. Why can't you sue if your child gets so messed up? And it was only, if I remember correctly, vaccines were maybe less. It was single digits. Now it's like 70.
Polio, yeah. Mhm.
Yeah, now it's like 70 or 80 something now. And they're giving them all in at once or in a couple of doses to these kids, and they're still protected. They fought. They're still fighting. Probably ends it. But up to just a few months ago, they're still fighting we need to have the COVID vaccine part of the vaccines that are given to kids. Why? That would make them immune to any type of legal action. If vaccines are so safe, and don't get me wrong, hygiene, health, all that helped eradicate and herd immunity, helped eradicate a lot of these. But vaccines are good, like you said, polio, measles, they do have their uses. But we've fallen under this belief that vaccines are the cure-all, end-all, when they're not. Our bodies adapt. People don't realize, you look at the descendants of the Chernobyl, the families living there, their radiation level tolerances are higher than the average human being because they've been living around that now for over for 2 generations now. And scientists thought that was impossible. Impossible. But the point is the human body is resilient. I go to Panama, I get sick if I breathe the wrong way. And there's my cousins, because that's the environment they live in. So the human body adapts. And I view the COVID vaccine as, I don't know if, I'm not a conspiracy theory, but there's so many things. It was the government's first big test. It was this. I know this. The government succeeded with what they wanted to do to keep us locked up and closed up because of technology. I can't remember what happened in the 80s or 90s, but they tried to shut the country down, and that lasted for less than 2 weeks because people had to go to actual work. The world had to keep moving. But with the remote viewing, sci-fi stuff, with the remote work, etc., it's a different game now. And I think it was a disgrace. I am a reader. As I told Annette, I am an expert, on Bigfoot, on ufology, on the country's founding.
Remember you calling into the Art Bell show a few years back.
Well, I'm history on that because I've read more books than who's that Nazi lover that Joe Rogan and Daryl Cooper has. I lost my train of thought. I'm embarrassed.
Well, no, I do want to say that, that a lot of these vaccines are just dead versions of the bacteria or virus, right? What made the COVID vaccine new and novel is that it was pieces of mRNA, which is basically like small pieces of DNA, and is designed to create a protein within you so that your immune system will get amped up. But here's the thing, you don't know what that protein is doing. You don't know what that mRNA is doing to your body. And there's been a huge spike in turbo cancers since 2021. Now, correlation, causation? No, we don't know that for sure. They should look into that. But that's a scary thing. Like, okay, well, how long is it going to take to do that? And meanwhile, they're still saying, hey, gee, get your COVID shot. It's been 4 years. Like, leave me alone.
And guys, I don't take the flu shot because of this. What the thing with COVID, it's the same with the flu. They can only create one flu shot a season, and they guess on what's going to be the most predominant. So I won't take it because of the damage. Now, you said something that triggered me, in a good way. I'm triggered. When all this was happening, I have covered sports my whole life. That's how I made my money. I was a pioneer, yada, yada, yada. But I was good at it because we covered it all. And the anti-vaxxers and some people we know and others, they're saying, I'm like, I have never in my life ever seen 20-year-olds dropping dead like we have seen in Europe. No, William, that happens all the time. No, it doesn't. It happens, but it's rare. See, they were conflating, is that the right word? Conflating the rareness, trying to get people to realize, it happens. It's okay. It happens. I'm like, no, it's a rarity. And they're dropping dead. And now the studies of the kids with myocarditis, the kids who don't need it. And this is what angers me at our generation and our parents' generation. Losers. Again, piece of crap losers. Why? Because they were forcing the kids to have to take those shots because they were fear for their life. Look, bro, you got 10, 15, 20 years. Those kids have 60, 70, 80 years, and you're putting them at risk to protect yourself. How noble are you? Well, got me a big fat pension I got to spend, So, and I'm not a saint, but I'm like, our generation's closer to death. That number of RIP we're closer to than we've ever than those young kids are, So it's just a situation in which when I saw it, I had one question because I was excited. I'm like, Trump's going to get this done. They're going to get reelected. Blah, blah. But then when I saw the 2 weeks, I'm like, I'm a logical person. I deduce logically. And I'm like, hold on. If it's going through the air and it spreads, you can't stop airborne. It's you don't know how long it's going to take. You can't say 2 weeks. So that's 2 weeks. Then, so I knew that was a lie. But my main question, I kept telling my wife, she goes, are we going to take it? And I go, not if it doesn't stop COVID. That's my only question. And all the research I did, it never said. But they were telling me it's not COVID. But when I would look for the sourcing, there was no sourcing. And my point is they lied to us from the get-go. And G brought up a good point, which I'll add to it. If we were in such danger, people would have been stampeding over one another to get the COVID. Instead, technology betrayed the elites. We saw the Democrats at that party here in California, that fundraiser where Nancy Pelosi and all the white Democrats, a few blacks scattered in there, a few Latinos, but the point being, it just what's the word? The difference in how it looked. You saw all the brown people, servants with the trays, and all of them had their mask on. Yeah. Then you saw Hollywood. They had their whole food set up, done, and this local bartender, restaurateur right next to where they were all open and able to do their business, her restaurant was shut down. Why was mom and pop shop, grocery stores, liquor stores, whatever stores? No. You are not essential. Oh, but Walmart and Target and Albertsons are, So the lie was there from the get-go. And I think what punctuated the lie and what made Gavin Newsom a household name and what is his death knell, because he's easily defeatable. I don't know if you guys saw it, but Bob Hogue, Roxanne Hogue, a friend of the show, her husband said it best. When he delivers, he sounds smarter than Kamala. He sounds more charismatic than Biden. And when he delivers his message, you're like, damn, I believe him. But once you start dissecting it, he's exposed. Case in point, remember the paddle border? That will always be tied to him. The guy in the water and the cop in the boat, paddle to the shore, arresting people. And obviously the French winery. Is that what it was? French wine?
Yeah, he was like at dinner.
French Laundry. French Laundry.
Then there was a Super Bowl.
Yes, exactly. So it was a big lie, big scam. And you know what my wife is concerned about now? She goes, I had to get tested every day. I had to drive down by the mall where they did the testing, the COVID, so you could go to work. She had to go do that. She was, I'm wondering if maybe something may have happened to me. But it was one of the few times I said, babe, we're not. Me and my wife, we make this. She allows me to make most of the decisions, but we always talk everything. But it was one of the very few times I said, babe, you will not take. And she says, why? Because I love you. I fear for you. And I do not want that jab in us. Because just like these drugs for kids, people did not think ahead. It's not reversible. Once you get this vaccine crap in you, it's in you. And look at
so Annette has a story, and I'm going to ask you to tell just a little bit of it. But you caught COVID, and there was a law in California that says you cannot attend. What was it? You cannot attend a board meeting unless you were vaccinated at some point. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
And you were told you.
Yeah, I do remember that, and I can't remember what even the resolution. What did it mean?
No. But so you had gone past COVID. It was 2 weeks after. And you were told you cannot attend the meeting because you're not vaccinated. And I had to argue the point. This is stupid because you just beat off COVID. Your immune system is stronger than the stupid vaccine.
Right. Yeah.
Because you actually fought off the actual virus. And then I think you were barred from attending the own board meeting. I can't remember if you actually attended it or you decided not to push the issue or whatnot. But
it happened because of that.
No, and I wanted to bring up, and it's funny now, I can't remember. I sort of feel like I didn't go to that one meeting, but about that book, William, well, two things I wanted to bring up. One is that book, Cause Unknown. And it was all about what you just said, kids just dropping dead. And, in sports, on fields and playing sports and, like you said, the myocarditis, you know what I mean? And being related to the cause unknown, but not really. It was the vaccine. And the other one was news about the vaccine coming out, that tennis player. Wasn't there a tennis player who refused to get the vaccine? He flew all the way out to Australia.
Yes. The number one ranked Djorvik or something like that. Number one ranked tennis player. He was he missed his opportunity to win, when you win them all in a row, because he wasn't allowed. They let him into Australia, then they kicked him out when the uproar became too much. Yeah.
Go ahead.
Let's just get to the kids here real quick. An internal FDA memo from Vinay Prasad says reviewers tied COVID mRNA shots to at least 10 child and adolescent deaths, mainly from myocarditis. And people, that's when you're running down and you drop dead. We saw that with Damar Hamlin. And to this day, they won't admit that was myocarditis from the jab that the NFL forced on the players. So for the first time, we have had acknowledgement that the vaccines killed American children. The memo looked at 96 pediatric deaths from 2021 to 2024 and concluded no fewer than 10 were related to the shots, while noting, here's what they also leave out, they noted the real number is likely higher. Now, the Atlantic, which is like the far uber left magazine that's owned by Steve Jobs, I never earned a dime in my life's wife, who was also a big time progressive. Steve Jobs, he of Apple fame, for those who don't know, or not Apple fame, Apple creation. So he said, so they're Uber left. That's where all has been left go to die. They end up getting a job there. So the Atlantics, including Jamel Hill, the Atlantic's piece, yes, some children may have died from COVID shots. They're admitting that children were very low COVID risk. I mean, they didn't need the damn jab, but it was forced on them. But they argue that acknowledging this is necessary mainly to avoid helping anti-vaxxers. Now, I had to put that through AI because I had to double check. What are they actually saying there? So, in other words, the Atlantic is stating we need to admit this very carefully and tread on soft ground here, whatever the saying is, because we don't want to give a win to anti-vaxxers or undermine the confidence in vaccines overall. Now, this is the same outlet. Got to give credit to Alex Berenson. He got this. I wish I had his URL. I don't. But he has a Substack. Just look up Alex Berenson and you'll probably be able to find that. But he highlights how the same outlet that 2021 push, if it's authorized for children, children should get it too. Now they're saying pretty much, yes, shots killed the kids. But on the whole, it's not a catastrophic threat. A few dead kids here and there. Who cares? Let's move on. That's what they're saying now. The cruelty, the elitism. Now, Annette, you know how when you ask that question, would you send your kid to war? And I told you that's a legit question. You just got to be careful to who you ask it to in a military town. But this is the type of thing where I would be asking the same question. If it had been her kid who died, she wouldn't be screaming like, she wouldn't be saying this. She would be on the righteous cause. She would be on her knees to RFK saying, how can I help? How much money do you need?
Mhm.
Yeah. This is the elitism. This is the Marie Antoinette. Let them eat cake. They're so out of touch with the working class. They're so out of touch with the suicide rates of kids today. They're so out of touch that we lost a generation of educated kids to China, who focuses on STEM. We focus on TikTok's big butts and hair in our armpits and rings in our noses. And I'm being serious. That's our culture versus theirs. So we have been set back in every which way, and the Atlantic doesn't care because they don't want to see their ideology threatened. So if people die because of the COVID vaccine, they're okay. I mean, am I wrong in looking at this? You guys have seen, I never sugarcoat the notes. I did remove all the data. I had over a dozen sources on this one.
No, you are right. And you're right. Their attitude is if people die, then so be it, because you're right. They don't want to give up their narrative. But what you said, you brought the kids in the black box now in the warning. What about all those parents who, I think in good conscience and believing that they were like, protecting the elderly, got their kids vaccinated?
Mhm.
Like you said, you can't undo that. And I think, and now they come back and they say something else. And I think they've even gone so far, and I think it's still Alex Berenson, who said that it's really the efficacy for adults, healthy adults could even be questioned. And there were adults that also died from getting the vaccine.
That's
So
right.
it's a big question mark now. And I guess the real question is, was it done in good conscience or not?
No. Well, hold on. What do you mean by good conscience? What do you mean? Was it done in good conscience?
The development of it.
No, because the kids who died, the one kid in one of the studies, that one of the few studies that was being done, one kid died. They removed them from the study. So their vaccine, and there are rumors. I haven't looked this part up. I'm just not that interested. That they had these vaccines developed in so many ways already. And then, as she said, they sat on him because they didn't like the ideology of the president at the time. So none of this was done in good faith. And then you saw the profit margins, billions upon, we're not talking hundreds of millions, billions. I can't remember if it was Johnson & Johnson or Pfizer, 60 or 70 billion in profit. Then they're pushing, well, we got to make this mandatory with the 70 some odd or 80 some odd vaccines. We get this. Why? It's more money. Gee, there are going to be black box warnings. They're talking about that they're weighing a strict black box warning for Pfizer and Moderna mRNA. And there are also reports of completely ending sales of these shots for children and teens is on the table. Now, Berenson, and I mentioned it already, G, also talks about the mRNA flu trial is pretty similar to the COVID. Again, as I told the audience, I'm not a doctor. You have to do your own research, but I don't take the flu shot because there's no guarantee that's going to stop you from getting the flu. And there are issues you can get from any mRNA shot. Gee, your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think mRNA, I wouldn't get that type of a shot, whether it's flu, COVID, or anything else, because you're basically telling your body, or you're giving it blueprints to create something. Whereas normal vaccine, which I'm okay with, like let's say smallpox, right?
Yeah.
We need to get that vaccine, otherwise it'll kill off huge numbers of population. They take a dead cell and then they put that in your body, and your body says, oh, I don't like this, let me figure out how to defeat it. So you're actually inoculated against an actual live version of it. So two different ways of doing it, and one has been shown to be extremely safe, maybe 99.99% safe. It's a reverse lottery ticket. People who get the polio vaccine might get polio, but again, it's a reverse lottery ticket. It's better to take the chances there. The mRNA side, like, we don't know what's going on, and I don't think we will know for at least 10 years. And there was a graph of all these turbo cancers starting in 2021, and it's just off the charts. It looks like this, and the stock of Nvidia, it went up, and it's like, well, wait a minute, why did that happen? Starting in 2021, what was happening in the world? And well, you could say the vaccine. Well, let's look at that. But you could also say COVID. Maybe COVID had some side effect where it's causing cancers as well. So let's
Oh
look at all of
yeah,
it.
yeah,
But
yeah.
but
They don't
I
want
will
to.
say I will never take the mRNA vaccine. I'll never give it to my kids, probably ever, because you're just, I mean, that's how cancers start. Cancers start with genetic material being mutated, and
That's
then
right.
now you got something growing uncontrollably in your body.
2 points. Big pharma is just so huge. I mean, I just got my bill a couple weeks ago. I have a hernia, and I went to the emergency room because that bad boy looked like it was like alien. I'm there 4 hours, 5 hours waiting there. I just checked in, and by the time the doc came around, the hernia had receded. And I was like, oh, thank God. And he just said, man, well, you're lucky you're here in case something had happened. Spoke to him for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, $3,000. $3,000. I swear to God, he did nothing. He did nothing. He did the paperwork to refer me. That was it. So we have a whole messed up big pharma. And for you all out there who are young, I never experienced it, but they used to have. I'm told it was well known chickenpox parties. The one kid got chickenpox, the other kid was catching. Now I can't. My sister got chickenpox, and I was like, I didn't want it. So she's like, oh, this. And my mom's like, she's talking, Latina, and I'm listening, and she's telling her friend, "Yeah, well, my kid's gonna catch it. Both of them catch it. Be good. Get it out of the way." And I'm thinking, I don't want. I hadn't got it at that point. Like, I don't want to catch it. And here's my mom making sure I'm in the same room with my sister to catch a chicken. But yeah, like G said, it takes a cell. It figures out how to adapt. So and for years, anyone who raised a red flag about these shots, they were deemed and treated as the problem. Now the government's own paperwork and legacy efforts admit kids were and may still be killed. And the people who show this to us act like it's a minor detail, basically saying, fine, some died, but you better keep believing anyway, because a few deaths don't matter. Now move along, plebe. If we don't insist on real public reckoning over how these vaccines were pushed on children and soldiers, let's not forget the soldiers. They may have been adults. Take the jab or you get booted out. We don't care. 6 weeks to retirement, you're out. We're telling the next round of experts, if we don't hold these people accountable, and bureaucrats, they can gamble with people's lives and never have to answer for it. And that is my issue with big government. That is my issue with crony capitalism. And that is my issue with big pharma. And I saw that I saw that firsthand push on us. I wasn't even in the medical side. I was in the marketing and fundraising side. But every single day at the Alzheimer's Association, somebody from Pfizer, we had close ties with Pfizer, was always there. Hey, yeah, I got this here. You take it home. Whether aspirin or whatnot, they were pushing something on us. All right, let's do some hot takes here. Let's do 10 minutes of hot takes. You guys better be quick with your answer because I am the executioner here.
Okay, quick.
We've talked about this. The Democrat Socialists, I kept saying they are going to make their play and try to usurp power. Now, the Democrat Socialists, backed by Mom Donnie, Elizabeth Warren, AOC. His name is Brad Lander. He's a pasty-looking white guy, former New York City comptroller, an ally of Mom Donnie. He's jumping into the 2026 primary for New York's 10th district. Y'all go, oh, what's that 10th district? That is the Levi Strauss district. That is a district held by none other than pasty white, rich, silver spoon, elitist swine, Dan Goldman. He is part of the establishment. If Landers knocks him off in a deep blue seat, you're going to see more of this happen. Challenges happen in safe blue seats. G, your take on this leftist populist pitch. They're going to
Well,
plan APAC and others to try to get in.
yeah, the next 8 months of primaries will be really interesting to watch because I saw this video of a Democrat friend of mine, and she's like, well, democratic socialism is different from communism. And it's like, okay, well, democratic socialism is uh, freely elected by the people, and they just argue for higher taxes to help the poor. Oh, it sounds so innocuous. Well, if you actually listen to what Mamdani's saying, it's a communist ideals, right? The problem is he can't win an election calling himself the Communist Party of America. So you got to call yourself something innocuous. So it will be interesting to see if a lot of people latch onto this whole idea of, well, Democrat socialists seizing of private property or the means of production for the good of the people really latches on. And if it does, at least for the Democrats, then the Republicans have to be ready to argue that that leads to poverty, that leads to atrocities, that leads to, basically theft from millions of people who actually own stuff. And then that will trickle down economics to take away stuff from the middle class because there's always someone poorer than you, right?
No, G, I get that. Well, let's stay on the party itself.
No, I think
for the party.
Yeah. So what this means for the party is if they go that way, then they're looking at electoral landslide against them in 2028 with probably JD Vance winning.
All right, Annette. So what does this signal inside the party? Because if Lander wins, you're likely going to see a lot of Democrat socialists challenge in safe blue eras. Now, what happens to the loser side here? Meaning the challenge happens, one side loses. The Democrats aren't like Republicans. They're going to chew you out, spit you out, and tell you to go home. So, and the reason I ask that is Elizabeth Warren is backing Landon.
I think they're unraveling. And I think this extreme part of the party has got a lot of momentum right now. And as G said, it's really going to be interesting to watch. But I think that they've got the attention of young voters. Something about it people are finding appealing and exciting. History repeats itself, William.
Class warfare. Here's how this reads to me. The lines are drawn or will be drawn. This is the socialist wing taking its first real swing at an establishment heavyweight. No matter what you say about Dan Goldman, he's an up-and-coming heavyweight because he's uber rich, and it's in a deep blue, high-profile seat. They're not just yelling from the cheap seats anymore, the socialists. They're trying to seize the keys to the car. And if Lander wins, you're going to see a wave of these blue-on-blue knife fights in safe Democrat districts all over the map, mostly urban areas. But if he loses badly, well, a lot of these national figures who are hitching themselves to the Mamdani AOC lane, people like Warren and their progressive brand builders, what happens? They can find out that they just bet their reputations on a faction most Democrat voters don't actually want running the show. GOP helped push Jasmine Crockett into a Texas Senate race. So Republican strategists, this came out from a story from Notos, to give credit where credit is due, that they quietly engineered Jasmine Crockett's entry into the Texas Senate primary to elevate a weak far-left Democrat, exposing both GOP game, yada, yada, yada. God, why did I write something so long? The GOP helps get her in there by putting her name in polls. Because of her name recognition, she polled higher. So they made sure that got out there. And Jasmine goes, ooh, look at that. I got to run. Boom, she ran. The two serious contenders dropped out because they don't have the name recognition. The GOP says they planned this out. Annette, your thoughts on her in the race itself. How do you see this with her in the race playing out?
You mean, how do I think she'll do?
Yes.
Ask G first. I'm not sure.
G. All right. Well, G, how do you think this will do? And the reason I say that is never say never. Isn't this what they said about President Trump? And I'm going to go back to Annette because Annette, I just kind of dropped it on you. The reason I asked you is how is she going to do?
Yeah.
She's not expected to do well and is expected to get shellacked. But do you know, tell the audience if you know, who told a certain Democrat who turned Republican, yeah, you should run, man. Check these polls out. You're looking good.
You mean to set her up?
Yeah, that's what they did to Jasmine. Bill Clinton did that to Donald Trump before the 2016 election.
I didn't know that.
You always learn something from me. See, I am now an expert on Bill Clinton, Bill and Hillary, because I read the books. I'm up there with Daryl Cooper.
I'm just on here learning. Jasmine, though, I mean, I have so many feelings about her, but do I think that Do I think she was set up, or is she going to be the one to get the last laugh?
Exactly. That's what I'm asking. Come on, the crystal ball.
No,
What's
I think it could be surprisingly in her favor.
All righty, all righty. G, let's hit back to socialists. She's a hard-wing socialist. Let's say she even gets close. What does this mean for the socialist brand? And do you think this was a smart move by the Republicans?
No, if she wins, of course it'll be huge for the socialist brand because it's Texas.
Yeah.
If she wins Texas, and that's a statewide vote, it's not a particular area that's blue. It's a statewide vote. So that's huge, and that's disturbing for the whole country. So I don't think she's going to win. I think she's going to lose. I don't think it says one thing or another about the socialist brand because of that, because everyone will just dismiss it as, hey, it's Texas, right? So just as I'm saying, I don't think she'll win, they'll just say, well, of course the socialists will never win in Texas. I will push back. Hillary Clinton was the heir apparent, so Bill might have all pushed Trump to say, "Hey, why don't you run? That would be great." That I won't push back on that. But I think Trump decided to run when Barack Obama made fun of him at a I forgot what the dinner was, but he was making fun of him as a
correspondence dinner.
that one. And he's saying, well, a reality TV show host, chiming in on world affairs and started making fun of Trump. You could see Trump was in the audience and he was not smiling. And you could see in his, well, you couldn't see his eyes, but you could tell he's like, I'm going to run and I'm going to beat you guys and get into office. I mean, obviously he didn't run in 2011 because it was way too late. So anyways, I'm going beyond my hot takes here, but
Yes, you
I
are.
just want to push back on that a little bit.
Yeah.
$5. Gee, can I bet you $5?
Yeah.
Let's see.
I think what happened was, hey, Donald, come here. Donald Trump's like, are you talking to me or Monica? Who are you talking to? Here's my take. Republicans clearly see Jasmine Crockett as their dream opponent, and they help build the runway for her Senate run or flop. But under that, you've got the socialist wing of the party using that same moment to try and rip away power from the old Democrat establishment in Texas. She did that. She got the two power figures to drop out, and she will be the nominee. And you never say never. Bill Clinton did the same thing to a Republican candidate named Donald Trump, who took his advice, thought about it, and ran against Hillary. If Crockett somehow wins a seat, the far left will claim they own the party's future in states like Texas, and that would likely be true. That's why they wanted her to run. The odds of her winning are worse than Donald Trump winning the presidency. And if she gets smoked, Republicans will celebrate, and a lot of Democrats who lined up behind this lane are going to find out they gambled their careers on the faction most voters, again, never wanted in charge. But the real loser, conservatives, we're going to get stuck with John Cornyn again. Final topic. Miami flip shows Trump's dependence and Dems affordability edge. So what happened? Miami just lost. They had a Republican mayor who had termed out. The new Republican was endorsed by Trump. This was a runoff. And this is pathetic on the Republican Party, and it's pathetic on the Democrats and America. So what happened here, Miami elected Democrat Eileen Higgins, an Anglo woman, against Miami, a brown Latino or Hispanic. I don't know if he's Cuban or not. Man, and the reason I say it that way is because nobody saw that coming. It's a Spanish town. They just clearly thought that it's kind of like a white man getting elected in Detroit or Baltimore today. It just doesn't really happen. So she beat the Trump endorsed Republican Emilio Gonzalez. It was a December 9th runoff. It was only turnout was only about 21% of Miami's 176,000 registered voters. So only 37,500 ballots were cast. Higgins pulled 22,100 out of that, about 60%. Gonzalez finished 15,000, about 41%. So it was about a 59 to 41%. But look at the votes in Miami, an urban center, one of our metropolitan areas in the United States of America. 22,000 votes for the winner, 15,000 for the loser. So this history-making new Democrat mayor is in office with a paltry voter count. That tells you this wasn't a wave. It was a turnout game. Your thoughts on this? She ran, because those are the numbers. Comment on that if you want. But she also ran on, guess what? Anybody want to take a guess on what else she ran on?
Affordability.
Thank you. She ran on affordability. The Republicans ran on Donald Trump and Ron DeSantis and what they've done. Annette, I think she ran on food, gas, on all the things that the everyday local voter cares about.
Like you say, the kitchen table.
Where the Republicans ran on the national issues. It's like, to me, that's a damn disconnect. Look, they don't care about Donald Trump in Miami. They care about what that mayor is going to do for them. Your thoughts from that perspective?
Yeah.
This is affordability.
No, the kitchen table issues, I think, obviously are going to appeal to the people who voted. I think it's really concerning that the turnout was so low, actually. And I think it's to what we were talking about earlier and what we've been talking about sort of this whole show a little bit, is that I don't think it's necessarily people have lost interest. I mean, people are interested in whether they can feed their children and buy a house. But I think that people are disenchanted, honestly, with the government. I do. I think people are and don't really know where to turn. And I mean, I think I'm not saying DeSantis hasn't done a good job and they couldn't get that message, but obviously that wasn't that appealing because it wasn't like, again, relating to me in my everyday life. And people, I think even as a person who's run for office, as a person who's just like a mom, I do want people to talk to me and relate to my everyday life and the needs and concerns that I have. Although I do have, wider concerns as well. But the most important thing to me is my family and my food on the table and my district and my home. And, then it goes out from there. So I think it's just sad sort of and very concerning that the turnout was that low, which shows like a real lack of interest. What's that about?
It's apathy. G, again, the cost of living, affordability, basic services, how regular Miamians are getting squeezed by prices and growth because rent's getting sky high, housing is sky high, because they really do have an influx of blue state citizens moving there. Now, the results say Democrats can still flip a trending city if they hammer affordability, while Republicans act like Trump's past Miami-Dade performance means the work is already done. Who's at fault here?
Well, the party, Republican Party, for not turning out, and that's I'm talking about the ones who are in charge of the turnout machine, right? So, talking to Corey of our local San Diego Republican Party, and he had made the case that all these elections are all about turnout. I mean, okay, so Miami's population is like 440,000 people, and what did you say? 40,000 people voted, so 10% of the city voted. Yeah, for 37,000 ballots cast, and the person won. And if you had just flipped 4,000 votes, it would have gone the other way. I mean, you're talking 1%. You flipped 1% of the population. So it's just a turnout machine. But I do think that having the right focus helps too. When I ran for office, someone asked me, "Are you for Israel or Palestine?" And I'm like, "Wait a minute, this is a school board. I'm running for school board. What am I going to do in terms of that policy? Oh, I just want to know about your judgment." I'm like, okay, no, you just want to know my political opinion, but I'm talking about the school issues and I want to balance the budget, right? And so I stayed on message. I want that person's vote. And I said, look, if I can't affect it, I mean, you should vote for me for what I can affect. So anyways, I think that's what happened in Miami. Turnout failed. The messaging for the Republicans failed, and we lost the city, and good luck to them. Hopefully we'll turn red in 4 years.
Yeah, I put the whole blame on the Republican Party, the leadership, a bunch of grifters, people who can't make it out in the real world, so they become political hacks. And it's disgusting because the Democrats connect with people. I mean, would it have hurt for DeSantis, even Trump, or somebody to go arm in arm and walk through there? I mean, that goes a long way. Democrats always do that. They bring out the big guns. I'll never forget Schumer, AOC. They don't like one another. They were hand in hand with Mamdani, walking down. You never see that. We have lost touch with the people. Trump's just started to get on the campaign trail. So I am concerned, but not concerned. Meaning we're in the low point of this. But I am concerned for the midterms, not because of Trump, because he's not on the ballot. I'm concerned with all these Republican Party's machines across the country because they're losers. I'm sorry, they're losers. In 2020, they allowed the state to literally break the law with the absentee and the mail-in ballots, things like that. Here, we've never challenged the mail-in ballots, our California Republican Party. So yeah, I view them as weak. I view them like I view Larry Summers. Remember Larry Summers last week in that?
Yeah.
Larry Summers. Oh yeah, no, that was 2 weeks ago. Gene was there with us.
3 weeks ago.
3 weeks, yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, I just look at him and like, you're not a man. I feel for your wife because when it comes time to man up, you're just not a man. And I say
He
that
loves all
metaphorically,
nations.
but it's just like the GOP needs a man up. And affordability is an issue. So here's what this should tell our side. We are still the party of low propensity voters who turn out when Trump is on the ballot and disappear when he's not. Why? We don't like you, GOP. You have to win us over and you're not. Meanwhile, Democrats are quietly stealing the wins with 20-something thousand votes and an affordability message. Common sense. If we keep taking victory laps, if we keep living off Trump's coattails and don't build our own ground game to improve turnout and create a real cost of living message, cities like Miami are going to keep slipping away. States will slip away. This is happening throughout the country. And the arrogance of the GOP at the state and local level is costing us huge wins, and it's shaping a narrative Democrats can exploit. It's time for Trump and the GOP to get back on their messaging game. After all, Obama successfully blamed Bush for 8 years with lie after lie after lie. Trump and the GOP can truthfully blame the last 4 on the Democrats and Biden. And there you have it. That is our show for the night. I want to thank my 2 panelists here. I want to thank the warmonger Annette Ross. I'm kidding.
It's me.
I'm kidding. Yeah. And I want to thank the jihadist, the G-man. I'm kidding again. And I want to thank you, the audience. So until next week, make sure you tune in. And we are on every Thursday at 9 p.m. Eastern. You can find more of our podcasts, more of our shorts, more of our clips over at Grumblings Media Politics. It's actually Grumblings Media -politics, but you can find us via Grumblings Media as well. You can find us on YouTube, Rumble, Apple, Spotify, Pandora, and all those other places you find podcasts at. Until next week, I am William Del Pilar for the G-Man and the beautiful Annette Ross, and this has been Fired.
Hey everybody, this is Big John from Grumblings Media, and I just want to say thank you for watching our content. If you want to support our efforts here at Grumblings Media, just smash the subscribe button right here, totally free, or just go ahead and consume more of our great content. Click either one of these 2 boxes.